we will begin.
Madam Mayor, I still don't see Mayor Pro Tem Orozco.
All right, I sent her a text message. I'll give her a couple of minutes to respond. If not, we'll get started.
Okay.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
You will be late. So now that most of the council members are present, Mayor Pro Tem Orozco is going to be late. And we will commence the City of West Sacramento special meeting of West Sacramento City Council and West Sacramento Redevelopment Successor Agency and West Sacramento Financing Authority, the June 1st meeting. Please rise for the opening acknowledgements. In honor of the original stewards of the land, we would like to acknowledge that the land on which we live, work, learn, and commune is the original homelands of the indigenous people of West Sacramento, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We acknowledge and we thank the original inhabitants who have occupied, maintained, and secured this place, who still exist on this land. We respect and celebrate the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. Thank you. And we will proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Karen Zanotto, member of Moms Demand Action. Karen, are you on?
I am, thank you.
Thank you. All right, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Thank you so much for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, Karen. And I know Moms Demand Action is it's a big month for you, trying to get the word out on the purpose of your mission. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney, please provide a report on the closed session.
Yes, ma'am. The council met in closed session to confer with its labor negotiator concerning negotiations with two employee organizations, the Police Officers Association and Firefighters Association Local 522. No reportable action was taken.
All right. Madam Clerk, please read the instructions for today's meeting.
City Council meeting will be conducted via teleconference pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E. The City Council adopted Resolution 2246 on we adopted Resolution 2248 on May 18th, 2022, confirming that a statewide state of emergency continues to exist because of the COVID-19 virus pandemic, and that the Yolo County Public Health Officer continues to recommend measures to promote social distancing. Members of the public are asked to watch the meeting live stream on the city's website or via Wave Cable Channel 20. Public comment may be provided using Zoom or through email by emailing the comments to clerk@cityofwestsacramento.org. Public comments sent via email before 5:30 p.m. will be provided to the City Council and posted on the city's website. Public comment given on Zoom is limited to 3 minutes and can only be made on matters within the City of West Sacramento's jurisdiction. This council cannot take action or deliberate on items that are not on the agenda unless there is an emergency and the need to take action arose after the agenda was posted. If you'd like to provide a public comment, when it is time, we will ask that you please raise your hand or press the *9 key on your telephone. Speakers will be called on in the order that their hands are raised. Please leave your hands raised until you've finished making your comment. And when your name is called, the clerk will unmute you and will notify you when your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item on the agenda is item 1, which are presentations by the public on matters not included on the agenda. Each speaker has 3 minutes, and the clerk will notify you when your time is up. Council members are prohibited from discussion on any matters presented under this item. Madam Clerk, we have received written comment. It's posted on the website. Do we have any live public comment requests?
I'd like to make a public comment on a non-agenda item at this time. Please raise your hand. Our first speaker is Scott Rafferty. Mr. Rafferty?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. I apologize. I'll speak on when the consent agenda comes.
Okay, thank you. Our next commenter is Ali Bundes. I hit the wrong button. I'm sorry. Ali, would you like to provide your comment? You may unmute yourself.
Great, thank you so much. I was trying to figure out the Zoom, and there I am on video too. Okay, thank you so much, Mayor Guerrero, council members, and fellow West Sacramento residents. Hi, my name is Ali Budens, and I am the local legislative lead for the Yolo County chapter of Moms Demand Action. And I wanted to come on today and just share a little bit about some upcoming events and activities that we're having as the Yolo County Moms Demand Action and as advocates for common sense gun legislation. I just wanted to share that this upcoming Friday is the start of National Gun Violence Awareness Day. National Gun Violence Awareness Day is an annual event that takes place on the first Friday in June. And it's actually the beginning of our Wear Orange weekend, hence me wearing our orange. And I saw that Mayor Guerrero is also wearing orange, so thank you. Wear Orange is dedicated to honoring the lives of people in the United States affected by gun violence and elevating the voices of those demanding an end to gun violence. Why orange? Well, orange is the color that Hadia Pendleton, it was her favorite color, and she is a victim of gun violence just a few days before her 18th birthday in the year 2015. And this happened in Chicago, and her friends in Chicago asked all of their friends to start wearing orange in honor of Hadia after she was shot and killed. And so today we have grown this movement into a national movement to honor the more than 110 people who are shot and killed every day in the United States, as well as the hundreds more who are wounded. And so we wear orange to raise awareness about gun violence prevention, about gun violence and means of preventing gun violence. As we know, gun violence increased with the COVID-19 pandemic, and it continues to strike those every community, as we most recently saw in Buffalo, as we've seen in Texas. And 2021, unfortunately, was one of the most deadliest years on record in the United States, with an estimated 700 people killed in gun homicides or non-suicide related shootings, which is a 6% increase over 2021, the year 2021. And as incidents of gun violence has grown, so too has the movement to stop it. We continue to educate, to raise awareness, to organize, to advocate, and to rally for safer communities. Together, we can build a future free from gun violence. And so this year, we just wanted to invite everyone to wear orange on June 3rd, 2022, which is, like I said, National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And please feel free to look at the Moms Demand Action website to find any events that may be happening throughout this weekend.
3 minutes.
Okay, great. And just I'll close by saying that we look forward to working with the City Council on common gun sense legislation for our city to protect everyone, especially our kids and our most vulnerable communities. So Thank you so much, and we look forward to working with the council.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Wanda Pope Flores.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, it's Rhonda Pope Flores. I just want to, raise a concern that I have. I have recently been provided some information about Paul Mitchell and his connection to the prior mayor. And the fact that they're doing this process with the mapping. This is not directly related to your agenda item. It's directly related to the concern that many residents should have regarding the relationship and possible conflict that may have arisen out of this individual not disclosing his relationship with the prior mayor when conducting this mapping issue. I also want to just point you into the Broderick and Bright Community Neighborhood Association that has been gaining much momentum, and I encourage all city council members to look at that organization and what has been building as a result of the last city council meeting. And I'll keep my other comments for the agenda item. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Graham Ryland.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members for this opportunity to speak. My name is Graham Ryland and I live across the street from Patland Park down here in Southport. You may have recognized my voice. I've been sharing the evolving situation down here with the construction of these fulfillment centers and warehouses. That construction was done under an agreement PD 21 that gave builders the privilege to build, but it also set expectations on sound, on pollution, on vibration of private property. I think the most powerful is the sound performance standard, which is laid out and identified on the city website. Our citizens scientists of about 300 plus people from the Southport Peaceful Living Group has purchased all the equipment necessary to measure this noise. And by measuring from private property, every time we've gone out, it's exceeded the city sound performance standards. That's 3 o'clock in the morning, that's in the afternoon. It's very loud and when measured from people's private property. We've worked with the city planning division for the past 14 months, but have simply not had much traction asking the businesses to be quiet. They're in business to make money, and the noise is only getting worse. I'm asking for the support of the city council to formally add an item to an upcoming agenda so we can discuss constructive options for how to address this. I'd love to connect with city council members. My representative is Councilwoman Early, and I serendipitously connected with her. I'm just looking for an opportunity to work towards peaceful, quiet coexistence between the buildings, the construction, and private property and residents. Because the issue is getting worse. The city just approved 3 more large warehouses, and they're under construction now. With all the air conditioning on the trucks, the air conditioning on the facilities, getting hotter, there's more of these structures and equipment. I don't know if you've ever rolled down the window on your car when you're on the freeway, how it goes, blah, 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 and you can feel it in your ears. That's the level that we're at down here. It's causing my children to be nauseous. I've had my child throw up on a particularly bad day where we had to leave our home. This is so pervasive. It's entering our homes and causing us illness. We need to address this. And I'd appreciate the support of the city council to find, again, a constructive way for those businesses to operate, but
Sorry,
also,
that's 3 minutes.
and also live up to their expectations for PD 21. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Maria Grijalva. Ms. Grijalva?
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I just want to follow up with what Rhonda Morningstar Pope was referring to, the relationship between Paul Mitchell and
Ms. Grijalva?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, are you going to provide your comment? I'm sorry if I interrupted you, but it wasn't coming through very clear.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then maybe if I stand over here. And
Okay,
the signal will be better.
Okay, I'll restart your time. My apologies.
So I just wanted to say that I wanted to follow up with the comment that Rhonda Morningstar Pope was referring to Paul Mitchell. We have a picture of Paul Mitchell and former Mayor Christopher Cabalden at a wedding. And I do feel it is a conflict of interest for Paul Mitchell not to have disclosed that he had a personal relationship and had been at a wedding with the former mayor. And that is the conflict of interest that we feel is not okay. And so thank you, Rhonda Morningstar Pope, for bringing up to that bringing that up to the community. And I just wanted to specify to the community what that conflict was. It's a picture of Paul Mitchell at a wedding with the former mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
We have no other speakers, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next is our consent agenda items 2 through 15. Are there any requests to remove an item for questions or presentation?
Mayor, I would like to remove item 14.
Okay, thank you. Any other requests? All right, we'll take item 14. Councilmember Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. I pulled item 14 because although I will vote aye on the resolution, I want to go on record that I do not approve of the cracking of Broderick and Bright. In Florida, Governor DeSantis cracked a black district so they could have 2 votes. In reality, they get 0. And a court found it illegal. Cracking is anti-equity, it's anti-poor people, and it's anti-Latino. It's a lie. I mean, with that logic, at-large elections would have given Broderick and Bright an opportunity to elect 5 council members. That was also a lie. The end of my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Alcala. I agree that this map is not equitable for those that have been divided in 2. It is in our consent agenda, and I am going to keep it in the consent agenda, and I'll accept a motion to approve the consent. First, actually, I will open it up for public comment on this consent agenda items. Madam Clerk?
Anybody in attendance this evening would like to provide comment on item 14? Please raise your hand at this time. Our first speaker is Mr. Rafferty.
Thank you. You know, it is really quite sad that this motion almost failed for lack of a second. And at your last meeting, this was an experiment, I think a failed experiment, in trying to keep this matter out of court, trying to listen to the public, and practically everyone from the North told you how they wanted the North to be divided. Except for the people who basically came out and said, we think more representatives is better than fewer. We don't believe in the Fair Maps Act, the CVRA. It was just about unanimous. And instead, we have 3 votes from the South who were committed to a system that for 20 years has excluded the North altogether. It's not a good omen for the city. To see the meeting disrupted as it was 2 weeks ago, shows that there's a problem here. And you have to have all parts of the city represented on the city council. Of course, you should pass this tonight, but you should recognize that the resolution you passed 2 weeks ago is invalid. It's based on a falsehood. It says on the final paragraph that you'd already adopted this ordinance, which you had not done. And, we shouldn't be arguing in court. We should do this with some degree of grace and moving forward. I'll speak about the mayoralty later, but you need to live up to the agreements that you make. And one of the agreements was this was supposed to be done by May 18th, done, not just introduced. So I'm profoundly disappointed in that. I realize it's on the consent agenda. You're not going to really have any discussion, but you should reconcile this. And if you're 5 very talented people, and if you were elected from districts, you'd probably listen to each other more, because you'd have real authority when you could tell your colleagues, I'm not going to get reelected unless I speak up for this. And for 20 years, there hasn't been a representative from the North. Does nobody in the South think that's a problem? I mean, I know that the members talk to their supporters and they get very worked up about this being a horrible idea. Try to make it work. And I think you'll find that a lot of people from throughout the city want everybody to have a voice. The city is maturing. There are lots of people with different needs. You need to be fully informed. You need to be fully accountable. And being accountable to everyone is pretty much the same as being accountable to no one. It's not how American democracy works. So I am disappointed. It's not the worst proceeding I've ever been in.
It's 3
But
minutes.
we should have done better.
Sorry, my next speaker is Maria Grijalva. Ms. Grijalva?
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I guess the city attorney did not mention that this morning at the courthouse, an ex parte filing was made. And even though you adopt this consent item number 14, what's important is that the community needs to know that something was filed, an ex parte application was filed at the courthouse today, and then we'll see each other at court. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak.
Our next speaker is Rhonda Pope Flores.
Hello, I just want to express my extreme disappointment. I watched that, back and forth with the council members, and I want to just point out that even your own staff indicated that you're supposed to listen to your public comment. That should have had a huge I don't know the word I'm looking, I'm so upset. That should have been a no-brainer to know to keep Broderick and Bright together. And this whole excuse that I'm hearing about, oh, well, you'll have 2 representatives. You know what? You're not telling the people what this really, really means. It divides Broderick and Bright and it makes us weaker as a people to be able to vote for things together. And that's what people need to know. It's not about, oh, we'll have 2 representatives. They're going to see for themselves. And I hope come voting that they remember the 3 city council members that were just no problem in voting that, even interrupting the mayor as she was still discussing the concerns of the committee to the community. Oh, I want to make a motion to approve this. It's absolutely disgusting, and you have failed Broderick and Bright, you 3 city council members, and you know who you are. And the other point I want to make is that that's a big issue, and that's a big conflict, seeing that photo and that connection of that individual who had a part in doing that mapping process. Shame. Shame. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alfred Melbourne.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, staff. My name is Alfred Melbourne, and I'm a resident of Broderick and Bright. I have clearly stated my dissatisfaction with the process and the fact that the council members at question are not in touch with the people in this community. It's obvious that this process took place because there was a disparity. And over the past 20 years, we can see that there has been huge gaps and holes left behind in a community that has been designated a food desert. As we traverse these trying times, living through a global pandemic, a climate crisis, giving a community a chance to do for itself, self-reliant. Ran into one of you today and tried to speak reason to me, telling me how good it's going to be for us, just like like the school districts. Well, our school districts are still lacking. We're barely getting the attention there. And the money that needs to be spent should have been spent years ago. And it's going to be the same story for us. It should have been done years ago. And here we are continuing to divide a community that's speaking up to stay together. 2 city council members, the possibility of is not better than 1 city council member for sure that's going to represent our issues and allow us to start building and not participate in this process. We're in disagreement. We think that you guys are breaking the law. You guys should be held accountable. It's not fair for a community that has been disenfranchised and come back from gang injunctions and over-criminalizing our youth and barely coming back from that, which people think it's long in the past. It's not. Folks ain't going to be coming out here to campaign because we're going to be here waiting to hear what you have to say and making sure that you're representing us in the right way, because as of right now, you guys are not. And so you guys will have to come to this area, or maybe you won't. Certain candidates for district attorney won't even come out here because they don't feel like they need our support. It's just a shoe in. As you guys try to engage us to get us to participate in this system where we barely even have a chance, trying to dig out from gang injunctions and gentrifying our neighborhood, making it so expensive out here that we can't even afford to live in our own community. So think about that as a community that's reeling from all these different disparities and shortcomings that have been lacking in our community for all these years. And it's been well aware of city council and folks that we need to rebuild Broderick and Bright, Sacramento Avenue, build the infrastructure, open up stores, not close stores. It's a food desert. Think about that, you guys. It didn't just happen. It's happened on everyone's watch, and we need to start making a difference right now and stop any petty infighting and work towards the betterment of all our community. Thank you.
We have no additional hands raised.
All right, thank you. I'll close public comment. And any other comments or questions or anything? And if not, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
McCullough moves.
That's one second.
All right, Madam Clerk, Councilmember Alcala moved and Councilmember Desmond second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Early? Aye. Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma?
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Orozco is absent.
Thank you. Next is item number 16 under Economic Development and Housing. Continued a public hearing and consideration of Resolution 22-53, amending the preferential parking fees, the city book of fees, and approving the new accounting technician 1, 2, 3, and associated appropriations. Mr. Lee, our Senior Program Manager for Parking, thank you for being here and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
I do, I can see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Larry Lee, and I'm the city's parking manager. I'm bringing to you tonight a recommendation to conduct a public hearing and adopt Resolution 2253, amending the permit parking fee and establishing a budget appropriation to fund a new accounting technician position. Amendment of this fee requires that the council hold a public hearing prior to adopting it. To start off, I'm going to give a brief overview of parking in the Washington district. In 2015, the City Council approved Washington Realized. In it, several key findings were made, including that management of on-street parking is a key component of encouraging and supporting sustainable development and reducing vehicle trips. The implementation of urban parking measures would happen in phases over time. The pricing of on-street parking was also found to be an important tool of parking management to ensure the availability of on-street parking. Washington Realized also pointed to the B permit program being an effective tool to protect residents from spillover parking as the land develops. Importantly noted also is that allowing an abundance of cheap or free parking is counter to the TOD goals and strategies for circulation in the district and tends to encourage and induce vehicle modes of travel. As shown on the table at the bottom of this page, in total, there will be a need for 5,600 parking spaces in the district. Given current parking supply, we are currently about 2,700 spaces short. In terms of city-controlled parking today, the Ziggurat Garage is an available option to which the city has limited rights to. The new owners are now selling monthly parking there for $120 a month. In terms of on-street parking, there are currently 752 spaces in the B permit area. As the district grows, city-controlled shared parking facilities will be important to realize sustainable development objectives, as shared parking facilities are essential to supporting the feasibility of denser development on smaller parcels and neighborhood serving businesses. Shared facilities maximize access to the district by allocating to different users during different time periods and is now a common and best industry practice. The policies and recommendations that Council adopted and Washington Realized for staff to implement included developing and managing both on and off-street parking, not subsidizing parking, active parking management strategies, managing spillover parking into adjacent residential areas, managing parking supply and demand to incentivize higher density development and ensure efficient use of parking assets, supporting neighborhood serving businesses with timed metered and dedicated spaces, use management, enforcement, and pricing to protect adjacent residential neighborhoods from spillover parking, and pricing parking, which could lead to a 10 to 30% reduction in required parking and truck reduction. In addition to Washington Realized, since 2007, the Council has also adopted land use and circulation policies, plans, and regulations designed to reduce carbon emissions from vehicle trips. This includes Council adoption of general plan land use ordinances, which govern parking given its role in realizing sustainable development patterns. As stated in the general plan, the city shall develop and manage a comprehensive on and off-street parking system that reflects the true cost of private vehicle use, supports the use of alternative transportation, and employs best available technologies. Additionally, the general plan states that the city shall use parking pricing and performance parking to discourage congestion. General plan zoning also requires that new private development unbundle parking. Unbundled parking means that developers must price and sell parking spaces separately within a commercial or residential product, and that parking can be located on a different parcel within a specified proximity. This requirement supports use of shared city and private parking facilities, including city-owned on-street parking spaces and interim lots. Council last year also approved the Mobility Action Plan, which is intended to make it easier for travelers to seamlessly plan for and make trips around the city by ensuring a diverse set of options for walking, biking, and using shared or zero emission rides to reduce emissions. Dense mixed-use development is essential to realizing the region's targets for greenhouse gas emission reductions consistent with the the recommendations from the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change. Implementation of urban parking land use and circulation measures, including unbundled parking and pricing of parking, are essential to realizing these objectives. Since Council adoption of these policies over the past several years, development in the Washington neighborhood has intensified. As you can see on this map, there are currently 11 development projects underway. As an example of the parking demand we will see One of these new developments is Kind West with an anticipated occupancy date of June 3rd, just 2 days from now. Kind West will have 148 units, but only 39 on-site parking spaces. Of these 39 on-site parking spaces, which are owned and operated by Kind West, they will be priced at $150 a month. All 39 spaces have already been sold out. And speaking with Kind West staff, future residents were quick to purchase this monthly parking option without hesitation, despite the $150 monthly price tag. 301D is another project that is scheduled to be completed soon. 301D has 40 units, but only 12 on-site parking spaces. Staff will be returning to council at a later date to include the 301D development into the B permit area. In addition to residential parking demand, there also continues to be growing demand for retail parking. As you can also see in this map, there are a number of businesses that rely heavily on street parking to be available to serve their customers. With ongoing construction projects and new developments already underway today, these businesses are already beginning to feel the impacts of the limited on-street parking supply. Protecting our neighborhood businesses will be critical to the mixed-use TOD goals. The city must begin to move toward urban parking policies and actively manage its on-street parking resources in order to realize the vibrant urban scale walkable potential of the Washington neighborhood. The staff also recently performed a market survey rate for parking and found that the monthly going rate right now ranges anywhere between $90 to $190 a month. CalSTRS does offer a lower $55 price, but it is a labor negotiated rate available to employees only during working business hours. In comparison, the city's on-street B permit is currently 42 cents a month or $5 annually. With such a drastic price difference, staff expects there to be a strong demand from the new developments for the city's B permits, which when displayed on a vehicle will allow it to park on the city street all day without regard to posted time limits or metered parking. Given that Kind West has 148 units but only 39 on-site spaces, this could result in well over 100 new vehicles that will enter the streets of Washington. And that only accounts for the Kind West development. It's also important to note that there are only 752 on-street spaces in the B permit area. On average, in a normal year, we issue over 500 B permits. With more high-density urban infill developments in the pipeline, staff expects demand to only intensify, further impacting parking. When Kind West was approved, it was conditioned on staff implementing appropriate parking programs and measures to ensure that the development would not have adverse on-street parking demands to the neighborhood. As a result, staff is here tonight to make the recommendation that in order to protect current residents from the parking impacts of future development, the council implement this parking demand measure tonight. Staff recommends that council keep the $5 permit pricing in place for current permit holders, and beginning today, update pricing for new permit holders to $95 a month. This updated rate will increase by $20 annually through 2025. This updated rate will only apply to new permit holders. As part of this fee update, staff did perform outreach, including mailing notices to over 800 addresses in the B permit area, posting on the Washington neighborhood's next door page where over 700 residents are registered, emails to online account holders, and posting the letter on the city's parking website and online permit portal. The city has already implemented these programs in the Bridge District, and with new development in the Washington area, the city needs to implement new demand management measures there as well in order to continue protecting residents from impacts of new development as attended with council's approval of the B permit program over 20 years ago. If no action is taken, we are, the city and current residents are likely looking at a long future of vehicle congestion and limited parking that will be very difficult to change. This cannot be delayed as the Kind West and other projects are waiting. Staff recommends council take action on this item tonight. And with that, I will return this item back to the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alcala.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for that presentation. I have just a few questions and maybe just thought of something. 752 on-street parking spaces, those are the ones that go for $5 a year, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and how was that determined? Was it income verification? Was it just residency? Can you just give us how that was determined?
Oh, the number of spaces?
Right, the 752, how did they get the $5 a year permit?
Oh, yeah. So that fee was passed by council in 1994. So right now, any residents, regardless of income, can get the $5 permit.
Okay, all right. And, you know, I know how hard it is parking down in Sacramento, old Sacramento. I avoid going there. I've gotten a lot of tickets because maybe I've, run in and stuff. What kind of traffic control are we going to have if someone doesn't have a permit? What is the fee for that? I'm sorry, I may have missed it on here.
A ticket?
A ticket, right.
I believe right now, I have to double check, but it's somewhere around $45. It's $30, and then the state fee, there's an add-on that the state passed a law, I believe it was around 10 years ago, that adds a surcharge to the tickets. So it totals around $45.
Okay, and these people that have the $5 permits, if they purchase a second car, let's say all of a sudden, they're able to, or the necessity is there, do they get the same deal, or do they have to pay the June 1st, 2022 price?
They would get the same $5 pricing.
Okay, good. And then let's see, I was just thinking of parallel parking. I was seeing how all the cars were lined up, and I've seen this in Sacramento sometimes. They sort of they can get a lot more cars in when they sort of drive towards the sidewalk and stuff. I just sort of wanted to offer that because I find that you can get a lot more cars in. I remember in my old neighborhood, we used to have a lot of trouble finding parking. And when they started doing that, that seemed to fit a lot more cars in. Just something to throw out there. And then I was just thinking about the CalSTRS building. It's $55. I know it's only for the people in CalSTRS, but I'm wondering if local residents, if there couldn't be something, maybe some kind of agreement where they would exit at 7 a.m. in the morning, be able to park there all night, enter at 6 p.m., I'm sorry, in the evenings, be able to park there as long as they exit by 7. That might be also something that, could be done to alleviate some of it. Anyway,
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have the Zebra garage available right now for that. So the city, we have rights to the Zebra garage from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. I have to double check on the pricing. I believe it's somewhere around $50. But we do have that available to residents right now today.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Mayor, if I could just chime in really quick and kind of prompt Larry to talk a little bit more about our offsite parking strategy, because I think one of the things that is important for the public to understand, and just as a reminder to the council, is the importance of creating offsite resources. So the street parking isn't the only option. Part of that unbundling parking strategy is to build these shared resources and tap into the ones that are already available, like the ziggurat. So Larry, if you could just briefly touch on just kind of the strategy as it relates to, the city is looking for additional offsite, off-street parking resources to build additional supply. And the most important connection there is that directly lowers the cost to build new housing, because otherwise projects have to park their entire parking demand on site. So Larry, if you could just touch on that really quick in terms of our strategy of looking forward at additional shared parking resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I did mention, we do have the Zebra garage available today, and that's available to us after hours, beginning at 6 p.m. all the way to 7 a.m. in the morning. And that includes all day, weekends, and holidays. In terms of additional off-street supply, as I did mention during my presentation, we are moving towards shared parking. And that will be, us looking at any available properties in the Washington district where we would eventually purchase and construct off-site parking, similar to the Bridge district. As Aaron had mentioned, shared parking is really going to be the key in the Washington district to have sustainable development.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. there any other questions about council members? Councilmember Ledesma.
I think it's just a quick clarification for Larry. Thanks, Larry, for the information from Aaron as well. But it's just terminology. When you say shared resources, you're essentially talking about public parking, correct? Either surface or built.
That's correct.
Yeah, just to be clear to the public, that shared resources just sounds not what it is. We're talking about building parking lots using public resources, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Oh, it could be either way. So the city can be in control of the shared facility, or the city can partner with
that third party.
Correct, a third party to facilitate that.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that it was clear.
Thank you. If no other questions, I'll open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
If anybody would like to make a comment on this item at this time, please raise your hand. Our first speaker is Chuck Meredith. Mr. Meredith? Mr. Meredith, we're not able to hear you. I'm going to go to the next speaker, and then we will check back in with Mr. Meredith. Danny Therical.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Perfect. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak on this issue. I live here in the Washington District. I did receive this letter, and I'm not opposed to the increase per se. Of course, I wouldn't want to pay anything at all, but for parking. But I understand why it needs to happen. I agree with this kind of sliding scale, so for the slow increase for new B permit holders. The only concern I have is that the council is going to be approving this today, I believe, possibly today. But the cutoff to have been part of the $5 permit grandfathered in was yesterday. So it's, for me, it sounds like it's almost as if a business was going to say, oh, we're going to have the sale, decide to do the sale, but say that you would have had to buy the product yesterday, which doesn't make sense to me. And I would ask that this council, if possible, extend that deadline by like 2 weeks or a month if possible. Just to get, as proper public notice that the city council is the one who's saying, yes, this is the plan moving forward. Not that there was kind of a plan not really approved beforehand, and now we're going to approve it. And if it's too late for people who are just finding out, it's too late. So that's the only thing I have issues with. Thank you.
Next speaker is, let's see if we can get Mr. Meredith here. Mr. Meredith?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
yes.
sir.
So I'm calling in for kind of the same reason. I represent all the homeowners at Metro Place of Washington Square. I was actually the first home build in 2004 because I knew the small footprint housing would be awesome. My problem is with this, I worked with Chris Doherty. I think we started working with him in 2015 or 16. And he told everybody on the private street, which is Metro Place, or Metro Lane and Washington Place, we will not be able to ever get the street permits. So we never signed up for them because we're original homeowners. And now we're finding out, well, we could have, yet he said we never could. All I'm asking for is because I represent 48 people, or 48 homes in our little neighborhood, to extend the date by 1 day, as they've asked me for the last couple of days, what can we do about this? 1 day so I can walk around and let them know what is going on, that yes, our private streets suddenly are available to get B3 permits, even though Chris Doherty told us in person that we were not. That's it.
Next speaker is Alfred Melbourne.
Hey, greetings. Yes, thanks. Learn a lot as I'm able to take time to tune in to the city council meetings and about the growth of West Sacramento. So, wow, it's it's kind of caught me by surprise as well that there was a process to get a lower rate in the future. It looks like, I mean, there's going to be some folks bound to get some tickets because people aren't getting the notifications or able to get the information in time. But on a side note, but more importantly, I don't know what it is now. It might be like 2040. It keeps moving 2050, climate smart, climate resilience, zero emissions, moving towards more green. I just see a whole lot of parking, a whole lot of more cars, a whole lot of more infrastructure having to be built to maintain all this. And it just seems counterproductive. You know, West Sacramento is not getting any bigger. Thank you, guys.
We have no additional speakers.
But thank you, Vidal, for closing the public comment, bringing it back to council. Are there any other questions? Council member Alcala.
Mr. Lee, how much feedback did you get from the outreach that you did? Did you get emails? Did you get letters? How many people?
Yes, I would say probably about 15 to 20. The majority of responses were folks who wanted to apply for the permit, so they would be grandfathered into the $5 permit pricing.
Mm-hmm. What action would be required if you were to extend it another week? And would that create a problem?
We could do that. Jeff Mitchell could probably elaborate further on the rules on that. But yeah, certainly we can do that.
I think before we talk about the process, I just want to point out the practical implications of that, because I think it's important to understand. Larry did a good job of giving you the real world numbers on the amount of supply available on the street. I would just put it as simple as the more permits that are issued with whatever extension you make is going to take from that supply. And they may seem trivial now, but when we're talking about a limited number of spaces, it all goes back to managing the supply effectively so that we are encouraging the feasibility of infill development. So I just want to be clear that it's not without potential consequence, that using part of that supply means that's less parking available down the road. So once those $5 permits are issued, you know, it's a severe discount from where the market's going. I just want to make sure the council has eyes wide open on that.
Thank you, Aaron. Real quick question. I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, just let me ask something else. So how long ago was the outreach done? I have missed it on here.
Yes, I can speak to that. We started in early May, so notices were sent out, I believe, the first week of May. And that included over 800 letters to all the addresses in the B permit area, including the next door for Washington. And then we also posted it on the website and the permit portal as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I know people are getting a lot of campaign material too. So I guess I was just going to ask, normally when we do an outreach, is it normally a month's worth of outreach before, you know, we close the, I guess, input that we get from our community, or how long do we normally use?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I guess it would depend on what the proposal is. But for this one, it does seem to capture a lot of folks' attention, and we were able to get a large majority in to be grandfathered into the new rate. I'm sorry, with the old rate.
Okay, thank you.
Was there a question that somebody needed answered on process?
Right, I was just going to ask if we've heard from two community members. One is asking for a one-day extension. Mr. Theracool said maybe if we could do it 2 weeks. I mean, if we were to extend this process, and I understand what you're saying, Aaron, you know, it just may increase more folks asking, but I'm just wondering if we were to extend it, let's say another week, could we, or does that interfere with our process?
No, you could. You could modify this to be effective a week from today, for example, or the end of this week. I don't know if there's a particular group. I understand one of the speakers at least is in the Metro Place. I'm not sure if both of the speakers are part of Metro Place. Metro Place was obviously an early development in that area. There may have been some confusion at some point. Obviously, Mr. Dowdy's not here, and I don't recall that. But if there was some confusion specific to Metro Place, you could consider an exception for, a short exception of a week or something for residents of Metro Place if you think that they were perhaps treated unfairly.
I would just, just because when we have the community speak and they feel that they weren't given sufficient notice, and I know that's very subjective, but that's why I was asking what normally our outreach, how long we usually use for outreach, whether it's a month. We obviously used a month here. So I'm just wondering if another week would create.
Would not create a legal issue. You could delay the effective date of your action for 1 week.
Okay. Because I would be in favor of that. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. And I'm not sure if we even need motions for that or if there's a process for it. Katie, did you want to?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I just wanted to comment that if there was going to be, if council was going to make a motion to amend staff's recommendation with regard to the start date for a certain residence, that it only apply to the existing residents, so that we would verify this is an existing residence that's being extended this time, because there are move-ins going on in this week. So I wouldn't want the new residents to be also taking advantage of that change to the recommendation.
Right. So what we would do is limit the geography of it. It sounds like if the council has consensus on this, limit the geography of where it would apply and the duration of when this kind of permit would be available. So you could do that. We just need to amend the recommended action when you take action.
Okay, thank you. We have two other hands up. I'm going to take in more comment from the council members before we decide on the topic. Council member Early, you have your hand up for a while.
Oh yeah. So hopefully it's a quick question. So I want to know how many were grandfathered in. Should I just assume that 528 were grandfathered in, Larry?
It's many more than that. So we have records that go back 3 years, actually much longer too. We have binders full of papers. So it's many, many more. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but it's more than 500.
Okay, so that's confusing. So we have 752 on-street parking spaces potentially. Some of those a lot of them were grandfathered in. And what we're saying is after this, moving forward, there would be a certain amount that we would charge $95 for now monthly for a space. Do we know how many spaces are left then?
So as mentioned in the staff report, I'll have to go to that.
That the 100 on?
That's correct. So with the new Kind West project coming in, with the difference between what parking is provided on site versus what parking is needed, we anticipate that that would reduce the number of available on-street spaces down to 100. And that's just one project. As I showed in the map earlier, there are 10 more on the way and many more after that. So it would have a significant impact on the parking supply of the Washington district for the foreseeable future.
Okay, so then, so currently we're assuming that all the remainder of the Kind project folks will take up the 124 potential spaces, leaving us 100. Let's say we open it up for a week, then potentially we would be down from 100 to I don't know, maybe 80? I mean, how many more do you think we could potentially pick up in a week as far as grandfathering them in?
That's tough to say. I don't know what Kind's timeline is for residency and how quickly residents are moving in. They wouldn't be eligible for a residential permit until they move in, and we would look at their lease agreement to see when they would occupy. But I do know that they are starting to occupy on June 3rd, which is this Friday. But yeah, I don't have that information at this time.
To be clear, we would not recommend a area-wide grandfathering in for any, you know,
I got it, Aaron. You're not suggesting we grandfather kind in. I really do understand that.
Right.
You're saying 124 would be the new pricing. I got that, right? Isn't that what you're saying? The 124 that would be taken up by Kind would be the new pricing of $95 a month. That's right. Those,
correct. Right?
Yeah, I'm keeping up. I promise. So the only other thing then, if I'm getting right all of this, would be the potential extension, again, not including Kind folks. Aaron, I heard you on that. How many we think would be remaining? And then my question, Katie, to you, or Aaron, to you, would you have to rework any numbers based on what the new availability would be at the new rate? Does that make sense? Because I'm assuming you've budgeted for this many spaces.
If I, Councilmember Early, if I could respond. So the reason that we're using this pricing is partly to manage demand. So we are not assuming that all of the Kind residents will be paying for these spaces. And we hope that actually, you know, not too many of them purchase these spaces. Also, to point out, many of the new developments, they'll be fully parked on site. So some of the new development that's underway, happening on the west side of 5th Street, for example, is fully parked and would only use on-street for guest spaces. So that's part of this pricing strategy, is to manage demand and not have cheap, inexpensive parking that floods our street. So we don't expect that Kind would take up 124 space.
Perfect. For me, that's helpful. And so then, as Councilmember Alcala has suggested, how would that potentially impact, if any, if we pushed it back a week to allow for just a little bit more public notice? And quite honestly, so if we started early May and we just ended, maybe, so we at least had a month of outreach, maybe that would also be helpful. A full month.
My staff's recommendation would be, if we're going to extend the time period, that extension, that staff be directed to verify that's an existing resident that's now coming in for the grandfathered rate. And that would not be an extension that new residents as of this week could take advantage of. That would be our main concern.
So outside of that concern, it sounds like it would be reasonable and you don't imagine any huge negative impact as long as it is for already existing residents as of May 31st.
I think that would make sense, that we could manage that. And to your earlier points, this is what we need to do right now, again, to foster this kind of sustainable pattern that is the council envisions. And so we have to manage this very closely. We'll be constantly updating it, looking at, are there enough spaces for the retail and the restaurants that serve the neighborhood? And do we need to allocate some on-street to those, local small businesses? And so this will be a changing thing. We will be managing and we'll be monitoring. Oh, now we've issued so many permits, we need to have a surface lot. So we've already kind of identified areas in the district where we'll look to construct and acquire additional land and, construct a surface lot. But for example, like at Burgers and Brew, they have employee needs. So we allowed them to park in right of way to serve their employees so that it didn't disrupt their customers' parking. So this will just be an ongoing.
I mean, I went to Midway and couldn't find parking yesterday. So I completely understand. I can see Councilmember Ledesma is biting his nails, white knuckling it, wanting to say something. So I'm gonna mute myself.
Thank you, Councilmember Ledesma.
You can't see my hands, but they were a bit during your talk there. So thank you, Dr. Early. But and thanks, Larry, again, and staff for jumping in. To me, this is we're fixing something that I think we're fixing something that and you can blame me as a council member for 11 and a half years that we didn't get to fixing. And because it always comes down, parking is a very, very touchy personal issue as people consider how to manage and park cars, their family car, their for whatever. So, and I get that, right? It's always been that very personal thing. I need to park my car if you're a resident. But I'm trying to pull back here and understand kind of why we're doing this, which is two things. One is to manage supply. This very limited parking, we are doing this purposefully for a lot of the reason this type of development, the Kind West and others are high density, affordable by design, I think is what Kind is, right? So people may not need a car. We don't want, I get trying to save them $90, but I think the bigger impetus, at least it has been on me for the past 10 years, around transportation. Why am I so focused on transportation, transit, via bike share? Why? Because it supports this. We need it here. This is all for me 100% about climate, sustainable development, everything, right? We want to get rid of our car culture when it gets down to these kind of choices. I'm not opposed, first of all, to we want to go a couple of days, whatever, because of outreach. But I'm trying to make sure council members today understand we are today given a choice about climate, right? It's about having transit-oriented development, which we've been planning for. We've leveraged public money from everywhere we can scrap and claw to get the Washington Sustainable Plan in place, to get it pad ready so these developers can try to build housing. We all agree we need more housing. The Kind West project is an example of our ability, a developer ability to build housing that's affordable given today's market for others. It comes at a cost. They can't park it 1-to-1 or 1 or greater, like here in Southport, which is totally different, dynamic, suburban. But there, it could be 1-to-1, which I think 3rd and D is, right? 1-to-1. Or no, it's not. That's underparked as well. But some of them are 1-to-1. So I'm just trying to make sure we understand the choice we're making. And what staff is trying to tell us to do is urge us is to understand that dynamic. So I am taking for this. I'm going to ask Mr. Lee to please send me the PowerPoint. And I asked the mayor to bring it with me because she sits on the SACOG board. I work on the transportation committee over there. I got a YOLO bus meeting on Monday. I'm going to be sending that same map you just showed us to the YOLO bus, because that is our imperative. Is how, folks, saving them $95 isn't the ask for me. I'm trying to save them money on the need to even have a car, right? They save them a car payment, save them the insurance, save them the gas. And I'm glad everyone here, at least I think, is supportive of the streetcar light rail project it's still ongoing. I'm glad everyone here has been supportive of VIA. I'm glad everyone here has been supportive of trying to increase bus service in and out so that people have choices. They don't need a car, but we need the density. We need this here. Parking is one aspect, right? I would also side with those neighbors, right? I'm fine. You're existing neighbor, you get the B permit, you're grandfathered in, whatever. But the new residents, I think it's kind of the cost. They have a choice, and we want them to have choices. So I think that is kind of where I'm coming from on this. I'm okay with us extending this out a short time, but the whole imperative here is to try to manage it so that we can move folks. And again, if you make it so incentive based that they do it, we're never going to make progress. And this is going to come up again and again and again as more housing comes in. And so that's why I'm also urging my council members, every time I bring up a stupid YOLO bus meeting, things we're trying to do, I think is coming back at some time here about a new contract. It's not inconsequential. These folks, we're moving, we need to make sure they have choices. And if we're going to say we're going to have parking that isn't readily available, then we got to make sure they have choices as well. So we got to do both, right? So to hit our climate goals. So it's as simple as that for me. I understand what people the folks tonight have said. But I just hope council can think about that a little bit. Like, this is our time for a choice we can make, and it does matter. So the only other part I want to make sure and applaud staff for doing, and I think we have to think of it, because I am thinking about a business community. I'm thinking about businesses like Sal's, like Midway, like Burgers and Brew, and that's only going to increase along Sac Avenue once that bridge gets started. I'm 100% sure of it and want to see it happen. But they're going to be so mad at us. We allow everybody to park on the street, and there's nowhere for customers to go. That's the part that I'm worried about too, and that's kind of what this manages. So again, this will help invigorate our business community as well, not just now, but the ones coming in the next 10 years. So again, this is the correct something that the city has never got to, because it's painful as we're experiencing here. But I think that the choice is very clear. So that's all I want to say. And thanks, staff. And Larry, if you could please send me that PowerPoint, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Larry. I heard a lot of good things from our city manager about your work and your history in Sacramento, but also bringing that here to West Sacramento. This is not an easy issue because there is very limited parking up on the riverfront area, both for residents and businesses. And I do know that in order for us to have sustainable development, parking is a very expensive component of building homes. And in order for us to be able to do it along the riverfront, which as you can see, it's a big attraction. We're having a lot of success in limiting the number of cars that people can have and park up in the riverfront, where our goal has been, as it started out with the streetcar, now the light rail, is to have maximum mobility in order for us to get people out of their cars. So we've been initiating efforts with the bike and the scooters to get people out of their cars. It's something you need to learn how to adapt to. It's going to be the future in so many ways. And I think, as Councilmember Ledesma pointed out, being on SACOG and seeing that that is a priority to create public transportation, and to really understand why people don't utilize public transportation and still rely on their cars. And I think as you build and have more work, more businesses closer to home, it will attract people to work local as well. And experiencing with COVID, we thought it was only going to be 2 weeks, and 2 years later, a lot of employees are still working remotely. They're now taking a look at the state level, converting some of the vacant buildings into housing, which they won't be having as much parking either doing something like that. People just, one car per person, if that. A lot of people commute into work. And it's more economical to commute into work, only because gas prices are going up. And I'm sure it may dip a little bit, but it's expensive to own a car. And just taking a look at this plan, I understand, had a good conversation with the city manager prior to the meeting. Hearing the challenge by a constituent at the last meeting about what I think about this, and I think it's what we've been planning. I on the Economic Development Advisory Commission and on the Planning Commission, this has been what we've been planning for years. We've known that housing will have limited parking. And we need to do our best to create more public transportation, which is why, Councilmember Ledesma is on the Transportation Committee in SACOG. And, my appointee at the Yolo County Transit District, because it's important to the council member. He's been working on it many years. And, helped establish VIA, which, I wish we could do more on-demand ride share, just not only within the city, but expanding it to other jurisdictions, which I see Sacramento has done, but it's not just within the borders of West Sacramento, doing something broader regionally. I think we find it is more, it is utilized much more. We're doing more research on that. So, this isn't just an isolated solution. We have in West Sacramento a comprehensive, and as you described, Mr. Lee, a mobility action plan, a very comprehensive solution. This is just one little component of everything. Now, when I'm hearing my colleagues, they are all supportive. I don't think I've heard anybody not be supportive. I think they understand, and I think they get it. Everybody's in a different place. You know, some council members have been on different commissions and school board members, things like that. So we all have different backgrounds, but I think they all get that there's a need for this. In looking at the recommendation from staff on the extension, I would want to narrow it down to that one location where Mr. Meredith was informed, and narrow it down to 1 to 2 days at the most. And that's about it. I think I'm a little concerned with opening up the door too much. And I think he mentioned there are 48 homes. I don't know out of those 48 homes how many residents were misinformed, but keep it at those that have been residents prior to May 31st and can prove that. That would be my recommendation on that, just to allow for those. I don't know, Mr. Doherty is not someone who can make things up from my understanding, but maybe there was a misunderstanding in communication. But if there is an interest from prior residents, I know they did receive a letter from what Mr. Therico mentioned. That letter, I think, described that May 31st was the deadline. I think it gave those residents an opportunity to inquire about purchasing a permit. If they received the letter, they were aware that they then they needed to get a permit. So they had within, I don't know when the letter was sent, but that they were to get a permit. And so they had, I think, some notice about that. I don't think this is today they've become aware that it's over. I think it's the notice included that information. I think we can be lenient for that section. I don't know if it's called Metro Place or what the name of the location, or if there's a specific address. But if we can even narrow it down to that I'd like to just focus on that. Or if we have to do it broadly for equity, I just want to make sure we don't put ourselves in a difficult situation. Councilmember Ledesma, do you have another question?
Yeah, I do actually. When you're ready, are you ready?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
No, I just said it. Thank you for your comments. But the question I also had was, you mentioned if they're an existing resident getting a second B permit, that would be that would be grandfathered in. And I frankly, I just don't understand that rationale for trying to manage supply. If they have one B permit that they've, I don't. If we're trying to accommodate maybe one part of the neighborhood that's been existing that didn't have access, and we open the door to existing folks that already have a B permit and thinking, oh, I might need another. That's the part I worry about. That might, again, I'd like to make sure we address that.
So you don't want those that have been living there prior to May 31st and have a B permit and would like a second one, which current policy is, the policy that's being recommended is to allow them to have the $5 annual. Is that what you're asking?
Well, at least to have a conversation about it, right? Because it does impact the supply. If you're an existing resident, you get a second, that again dwindles down the number, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think the question earlier was about ownership of a second car and maybe even a third car. And Larry, maybe if you clarify that, is our intent that going forward, if someone has a B permit now at the $5 level and comes to you with a request for an additional permit because they got an additional car, would it be at the same $5 level, or would it be at the current level?
The recommended action would have that resident at the $5 permit level. If it's a new resident that hasn't had a permit before, they would be under the $95 pricing.
Okay, I'm just going to be my honest self here. If somebody can afford a new car, and this is part of sustainable development, we're trying to manage, like, people getting into cars, using cars. I mean, could they afford the $95 parking permit as well?
So I think just to before more discussion, what I'm hearing there is we could, and Larry, tell me if I'm wrong here, you could call the $5 permit level basically done except for renewals of existing permits as of whatever date you set, if it's the end of this week or whatever. But you could then also in the ordinance clarify that any new permit, regardless if it's a existing resident or not, could be at the new level. Larry, is that doable?
Yes, we could do that. The question too is, for the vehicle permits, do we want to tie it to a vehicle license plate, or would it just be based on the number of vehicles that's issued to that resident? Typically, on average, we see about 2 permits per address. And then some residents take the visitor hang tags as well, which is limited to 2 per address.
Okay. I think I had Councilmember Early's hand up first, and then we'll go to Councilmember Early.
It's okay. Councilmember Akala can go first.
I was just going to say, they're not necessarily new cars. I know some families to get like old junkers because they really need that, Chris. But I'm glad that Mr. Lee answered that. I just wanted to mention something. You know, when you were talking, Chris, you were talking about how we were really trying to move forward with this. And I'm just wondering, with the electric cars, do they get a special type of permit, or is that something that we don't do? We just sort of like put all the cars together? Because I was thinking that would encourage more people to get electric cars. Or if they don't have cars at all, is there any incentive? Let's say they have bikes. Does the city provide an incentive, or does the state provide an incentive that maybe we can get that information out? You know, because they're contributing to a cleaner environment. Is there something maybe that the state gives out annually, you know, to people who use bikes and don't have cars registered? I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box because of Chris's comments. You know, we're moving forward. We're trying to improve our, you know, our environment.
In terms of the electric vehicles, we don't have anything right now that would give them the special rate or anything, given especially the pricing is already so low at $5 annually. So it's all the same pricing right now. But it is, we could look at future programs when we expand parking in the area, such as a city controlled facility. We could look at that. Right now, electric vehicle charging is free at the city stations. So that is one incentive.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Early.
So Councilmember Ledesma and Councilmember Akla made me think a lot just in regards to, because my first initial reaction was, well, if we wanted to be fair, just moving forward, it would be everyone who has a B license grandfathered in, but then moving forward, it would just be one license, right? B license, $5 license per household. But then I thought about my own household. And yes, Chris, right? I'm in a different area. I get it. But the difficulty, it would be having one, you know, potentially one, and as far as just income and that kind of thing. And so it sounds like, Larry, right now our policy is 2 per household. Do we have a limit per household? I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, so right now we issue visitor permits as 2 max per household.
Okay.
In terms of the vehicle permits that are assigned a license plate, right now from my understanding, there is no limit, but on average, most addresses have about 2 vehicle permits.
So talk to me like I haven't been on the planning commission. So when you say that you have 2 per household versus 2 licenses, what's and that it's unlimited license plates? I don't know the difference between that really.
Yeah, absolutely. So some households, they may have more than 2 cars.
Okay.
So from what I gathered from the data, it's very few. It's only, if I remember correctly, maybe 5 or 7 households, if even that number, that have more than 2 vehicles with permits.
So you're saying that I could have 2 permits per home, but have like 5 cars, for instance, and then just rotate those 2 permits across those cars? Did I get that?
Yes, as long as, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So that's also a common practice in other cities as well, where there's not a limit to vehicle permits.
Okay, I have learned a lot tonight. Okay.
Okay, so the question on the table that I heard from Councilmember Ledesma is to not grandfather the new permit request for those that have lived there prior to May 31st. Is that the question I heard from Councilmember Ledesma? Where the recommendation is to allow those that have lived there before May 31st and they only have one permit, they requested a second permit, would that be grandfathered in at the $5 annual rate?
I don't know if I made that strong of a point. I think I'm just asking the question about, is that from a policy level, do we want
sure,
to encourage, multiple permits? And what I'm hearing from Larry is that they're already somewhat limited to the households. And look, I know the neighborhood, I've walked it, been there. There are households, there were real like townhouses or they're there, right? And so I understand folks there have garages, driveways, and they bigger families, bigger houses, E, F, whatever down the way there. But the area, but what we're thinking about here too is again going forward, right? So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about the Kind project, all the other projects laid out on the map, because this is a debate we had 15 years ago. Sorry, Dr. Early, when I was on Planning Commission and we were mapping ironworks, and people were asking, where is their garages, where are they going to park? And it's frankly, they're probably not going to want to, if they're there, ironworks would never work. People aren't going to live there, which is why we're seeing the density, right? So it's just a different market, right? We live where we live. That's our choice, and we want choices in housing. There is obviously a large movement towards higher density urban living, which the Washington District and the Bridge District will accommodate. So I'm thinking about them, and I love the fabric of the Washington neighborhood because it has that mix of housing. So I'm trying not to, if there's a way, Larry, to manage it, right? I just don't want to see it run on the bank from those saying they can scoop up more because
but it sounds like we've been doing it this way, right? And we haven't filled all of the potential licenses. And then moving forward, any new residents that are coming aren't going to have access to this regardless. And so it would be amongst those who already exist. It sounds like we are limited to the household, so that's good, 2 per household, so that max. I mean, the policy that exists might already be fulfilling what I think your concern is.
And I'm sort of nodding my head, waiting for somebody to say, yes, that's correct. So maybe Aaron.
I could just make a suggestion. So let me just give a little more context. Our friend Chris Doherty, who now works at SACOG, has been mentioned a few times tonight. I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't say Chris was asked to wear a lot of hats when he was at the city, parking being one of them. Our parking program has evolved quite a bit since then, much thanks to Larry. But the point of all that is, part of what Larry's doing now is tracking a lot of data, including the question at hand with this. What I would recommend is that we continue to do that as we see this program move forward. And if Larry notices that, hey, all of a sudden there are a lot of these households that have been pre-existing that now all of a sudden want 5 permits, well, what's happening there? And maybe we need to reevaluate and we can come back with a adjustment to the program. So if that sounds okay, I would want to kind of just refocus for a minute. I think the mayor brought it back to the point earlier about looking at maybe a specific geography in a very limited period of time to account for people that maybe didn't find out about this in time, as one of the speakers noted. That's something I think that is still open, and you're hearing from staff.
Yeah, thanks for level setting, Aaron. And I thank you for bringing it back, because the mayor did propose a very short window, I think 2 days or whatever it was, which I would totally be in support of. That very limited if the rest of the council is there, because I think that defeats the goal of what we're trying to do. So
I agree, Chris, and I would propose 2 days, maybe to June 3rd. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but Councilmember Accola, just with the you had to have been a resident, right, as of May 31st,
right? Yeah,
right?
Correct.
That's the criteria. We're there.
Okay.
All right. I guess with that, is that the motion? just want to bring Jeff back up. Is that okay as the motion?
Well, can I get one clarification? Is it limited geographically to residents of Metro Place?
I thought it was the Washington area.
That's totally up to you. Metro Place had been mentioned, and I just wanted to make sure that we.
I wasn't sure if that was a place, if that was the actual like place that we wanted to limit it to.
I think the Washington area, just to be on the safe side, particularly because it's only going to be a couple of days. And so I would hate to just limit it to residents. Okay.
It would be, the Washington area is a portion of the B permit area. Is that correct, Larry? Yeah.
That's correct.
Can we give a street boundaries, maybe?
Larry, do you have any suggestions?
Yes, we could do 2nd Street to 8th Street and Tower Bridge Gateway to Broadway boat ramp to the north.
Okay.
Excellent, Larry. Right off the top of your head, too.
Thank you.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is the motion would be the staff's recommended action with one modification. There would be a 2-day extension. So residents living within the area bounded by 2nd and 8th Street and Tower Bridge Gateway and the Broderick Boat Ramp would have until June 3rd. They would have to provide proof of residency before June 1, 22.
That's Norma, is that your motion?
It is. Thank you.
Then I will second it.
Right. Councilmember Alcala moved that motion. Councilmember Ledesma seconded it. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Early?
Aye.
Councilmember Alcala?
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Orozco? I know she joined us, but she is not in a place where she can respond. Mayor Guerrero?
Aye. Okay. With that, we have four and one absent. And next item is regular agenda item number 17 under city managers, a workshop on potential ballot measure language to change mayoral term to 4 years. We have Mr. Robinson, our deputy city manager, to present on this.
Good evening. At the council's meeting of May 18th, council directed staff to return this evening with a workshop to facilitate council discussion of the term of the mayor. So that's the report we're presenting tonight. We're essentially seeking the council's direction on 2 matters. First, whether the council wishes to place an initiative on the November 2022 ballot to allow voters to decide whether the mayoral term should stay at 2 years, as is currently the case, or whether it should be changed to 4 years. And second, if the council does wish to proceed with a ballot initiative, as seemed to be the consensus from the last meeting, whether the draft language in the staff report is acceptable or whether the council wants any adjustment to that. And I'll ask the city clerk to put up that language now. If the council directs staff to move forward with the ballot initiative, we would return to your meeting of June 15th with a resolution to formalize the council's decision and the language that is to be submitted to the county. It would be highly preferable for the council not to still be editing the language at that point. So we're hoping that if the council does choose to proceed with the ballot measure, it can also provide any adjustments or edits to that proposed language this evening so we can have that built into the resolution that you see on June 15th. That's pretty much the report there. With that, I'll turn it back to the mayor, and the city attorney and I are available to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Robinson. Are there any questions among the council members? And I don't see any. Okay, I'll open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk?
If you'd like to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand at this time. Our first speaker is Mr. Rafferty.
Thank you. This does make me sad because the city is simply not living up to its word. We have a settlement agreement. It's never been posted. The public doesn't know what it says, but in this respect, it says, and I quote, "In conjunction with the pre-map and map hearings, the West Sacramento City Council will receive public testimony on changing the mayoral term from 2 to 4 years, starting in 24. That did not happen. Instead, there was no reference to the mayoral term until the last hearing, when there was a statement at the end of the staff report saying that if the council did nothing, nothing would happen. Well, that's not what the agreement said. The agreement goes on to say if the council proposes to change the term, I'm sorry, it says that if you don't propose to change the term, that we reserve the right to petition the court. So it's not nothing is happening. It goes on then to say that if you do propose to change the term, the city and plaintiff will jointly seek an order dispensing with voter approval as part of the CVRE remedy sought from the court. So this is part of a CVRE remedy, and you have at least 3 members on the record saying that they support it, but you are referring it to the voters. This is exactly what you agreed not to do. I mean, you can't mince those words in a way that maintains any reliability or integrity on the part of the city. And on top of that, we're hearing today, this is a big rush. The deadline in the statute is August 13th. So yes, if the judge says, I'd rather not do this, I don't think it's an appropriate and a necessary element of the CVRE remedy, let's reconvene and maybe we can all support this. But where it stands now, it looks like you were doing something that's really gone out of fashion in this country, and that is putting the rights of a minority on the ballot, saying, do they have rights or do they not have rights? And I think that's very unfortunate. It creates the impression that a group of council members are trying to create a racially charged issue to mobilize their majority voting bloc against Latino candidates. That will be big trouble, not just politically, but legally for the city. That is not something, that is precisely what we tried to work together. We tried to work together to eliminate.
We have no additional speakers, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We'll close the public comment, bring it back to council. Are there any questions among the council members? I can't see. John, I think we could take off the, does anybody need the language up? No? Okay, good. Council member Alcala.
I would like some feedback from Jeff Mitchell, because I am very concerned that we're going to get deeper into something that could cause the city more problems. Could you please, Mr. Mitchell?
Certainly. So I would make 2 points. One, you're not being asked to approve the language tonight. You're being asked whether or not you would like the language to come back on June 15th. More specifically, though, in response to Mr. Rafferty's comments, we simply disagree with him. We do not think the settlement agreement bars this action. There is other language in the settlement agreement that very specifically addresses future actions by the council, place items on a ballot, other legislative actions, and bars those. The parties did not intend that for this. So I think he's simply misreading the settlement agreement. But that's what a court can decide. We may have an answer from a court before June 15th. It's possible. We are anticipating a hearing on the 10th. My suggestion, if the council, and this is totally up to you, if the council is interested in pursuing a ballot measure, then direct staff to bring it back on June 15th. You'll have time between now and then to decide whether you want to move forward with it or not. If we get an answer from the court, we'll inform you of that. The August 13th date this is the first time Mr. Rafferty has brought this up. I don't think that's the correct date, but again, we have time between now and June 15th to confirm. And if it turns out that you actually have until August, we will certainly tell you that.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. And with that, Mayor, I'd like to table this to the next meeting till we find out?
I don't think that's what Jeff just suggested. What he suggested was we move on with the language, and then June 15th, we can decide, we would have more information. We could decide whether to approve the language on June 15th. I thought that's what Jeff just said.
Jeff, could you clarify that? Because I think you were also saying we were going to find out about the board.
Yeah, this is just a workshop. So staff looking for direction from council whether it come back on June 15th or not.
Yeah.
If the council decided that they weren't interested in this ballot measure, then this would be the last it came before you. But if you have an interest, then I think staff is looking for direction on whether you're comfortable with the language on the ballot measure that we've proposed. And if you are, then that would come back to you on June 15th for a formal decision by the council. You're not making a decision. Right?
So we're not. So we wouldn't. You're not suggesting we table. I didn't think that's what you were suggesting.
I wouldn't.
I didn't think so.
I wouldn't use the term table.
I would actually, to take so what I would like is for us to have the discussion as recommended in the staff report, and not table the whole thing till next. I don't know what the purpose of that would be actually. The point is to have, and we allowed for public comment. We heard and received that, and if there's any questions about what was mentioned, I think our city attorney has provided clarification on the dates, and I don't think there's a need to table anything at this point. I think we can just provide feedback, staff direction, and we'll come back at our next meeting to take action. That's when that'll happen.
All right. So we're just basically saying we'll have a workshop on June 15th, and the language that is here, this ballot measure X, we're not approving this. We're just simply okay.
We're having the workshop now, and then on June 15th, and we will provide direction on. So we're providing some recommendation on the language now, which will come back to June 15th for a vote.
Okay.
Right, and just to provide one more point of clarification, the date that we're operating under was provided by the county elections office in terms of meeting their deadline to prepare their ballot. So, not sure what the other date relates to, but that's straight from the yellow elections office to meet their deadline.
They have given us the date of June 21st as the deadline for submitting material.
Well, the language looks really clean and clear. I'm okay with the language, and do we need anything else? I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
No, go ahead, Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you. I think Norma, you're finished, right, Norma? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The language is pretty clear cut. It's asking the voters who initially approved, having a directly elected mayor, and then 2 years, give them the choice on the 4 years. And I think we all sort of, it's pretty straightforward, extending, going from 2 to 4. So just thank staff for kind of getting it done quickly and agree with the timeline that was discussed.
Councilmember Early?
I agree with the language. And if brought back on June 15th, it makes sense. So if indeed the county deadlines are what have been told to our staff directly, and we would need to fall within those, then if we came back on June 15th with this language, then it looks good to me.
Okay, thank you. And myself, I'm fine with the language that you drafted, John, for it to come back on June 15th for a vote. So with that, I think, do you have enough information, John, for us
That's all I needed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next item is item number 18 of City Manager consideration of Resolution 22-70 and Resolution 22-71 for exemption to the 180-day wait period for hiring a retiree as a temporary extra help employee under Government Code 7522.56 and 21.22.4. Ms. Caitlin Montes, you are Senior Human Resources Analyst. You're going to present for us. You're muted, Caitlin. Sorry, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Staff is respectfully recommending that the Council approve resolutions 2270 and 2271 for an exemption to the 180-day wait period for hiring for retirees Yasminda Gray and Linda Modeste as temporary extra help employees. A retired annuitant approved to return to work prior to the completion of their 180-day wait period under Executive Order N1221 for the pandemic with a start date prior to April 1st, 2022, is allowed to work until June 30th, 2022. It's been determined that the retired annuitant services are still needed beyond June 30th, 2022, and as they are within their 180-day wait period, an approved resolution is needed for them to continue their employment. Approvals are needed by the agency's governing body, must be approved by July 1st, 2022 for the retired annuitant to continue.
All right, thank you. Moving it back to council, or any other questions? Okay, and then I'll open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
If anybody would like to make comment on this item, please raise your hand at this time. We have no hands raised.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Closing the public comment, bringing it back to council. Questions?
I'll move the recommended action.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. Councilmember Ledesma moved and Councilmember Early seconded. Can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Early.
Aye.
Councilmember Akala.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Guerrero.
Aye, thank you. This item is approved. We will now move next. Item 19 under community development, consideration of a workshop of the active transportation wayfinding program, CIP 11034. And we have Ms. Stephanie Chan, our senior transportation planner, here to present.
Good evening, Mayor Guerrero and members of the council. Can you see my screen? Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Stephanie Chan, and I'm the Senior Transportation Planner with the Community Development Department. Today, I will be presenting a short workshop on our active transportation wayfinding program. So wayfinding signage is the collection of directional signs that inform people of their surroundings and show them information at strategic decision points to guide them in the right direction to their destination. This program is actually grant funded by two grants, one from the Sacramento Area Council of Government and the other from the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District. So by way of background, the Active Transportation Wayfinding Program goal is to develop a wayfinding system that supports the value and brands of the West Sacramento, of the city of West Sacramento, and to promote a safer and more seamless navigation system for pedestrians and bicyclists, and to raise awareness of the city's trail system. On this slide here, we have a list of criteria we use to develop decisions for choosing the sign locations. And so tonight, I'm just presenting to you our priority locations and our signage design concepts for your feedback and for the selection of a signage brand concept. So the city staff and consultant Hunt Design identified priority locations for approximately 30 signs as the initial phase of implementing the wayfinding program. These locations are identified by the small red dots on this map. Primarily, these signs are located along West Capitol, Sycamore Trail, Fifth Street, and Riverwalk Trail. These areas provide critical enhanced low stress pedestrian connections between key destinations, and as well as connections between existing and future mobility hubs and services such as Joey Loves Park, the West Sacramento Community Center, the Regional Transit Center, and other trails. As you can see to your right, you'll notice the destinations along these areas, as well as our mobility hubs that we identified through the Mobility Action Plan. There is also a overall long-term wayfinding signage location as proposed on this slide. You can see the overall program identified by the locations of the yellow dots on this these slides. So this is just the overall implementation of a citywide wayfinding signage program once we have funding available for implementing signs in these areas. Additionally, there is the opportunity of incorporating these signs as part of development projects along, if they were to happen along these areas as well. So staff released a survey in mid-April to early May to seek community input on the sign locations that were presented on the previous 2 slides, as well as the 3 preliminary signage design concepts as indicated on the top of this slide here. More detail can be found in attachment 1. The signage design concepts include a general color palette of the city, as well as examples of how this design can be altered to fit within neighborhoods or district banding. So for example, there's, you can see the Bridge District or the Washington District where it takes and incorporates existing signage in those areas and those color palettes, and how we can make it a bit more cohesive in those specific areas. So Hunt also proposed a front and back to the sign. So you can see that on these 3 concepts here. So with the idea that the back of the sign can further develop a brand and network for a transportation sign, so that if you're coming from the opposite way, you're not seeing just a metal blank slate. You know that it's an active transportation sign, and you can come to the other side to find information on destination and wayfinding. Furthermore, the concepts also included a smaller trail identification signage that can be placed at shorter intervals between where those dots that you saw on the previous 2 slides, to help people know that they're on the right track in the right location. That those signs can be found on attachment 1 as well. So the survey we released on our social media, as well as provided the link through our community center and our recreation center. And we did some additional outreach while we were doing outreach for the, in coordination with the VIA pilot program we're running. We received a total of 70 responses for a survey that we released in both English and Spanish. And 45% of the respondents selected Concept C. As you can see, Concept C takes into account some of the existing branding that we have in the city right now, with the big W that we use at our city, a couple of our city bus stops. So tonight I'm just seeking any feedback on the overall active transportation wayfinding program, the locations I have shown, or the criteria or the goal of the program, as well as seeking your feedback to select a design concept to move forward with. And with that, I'll open up to the council for your feedback.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to council. Appreciate your presentation, Ms. Chan. And are there, let me see if I can, does council need the PowerPoint up?
Maybe when we talk about the design, because I think one of these questions is asking about the design.
Okay. In the picture of the design, Ms. Chan, I think that might be helpful.
Yes, here you go.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Early, go ahead. You can start.
Oh,
or do you want to wait till after public comment?
I don't mind waiting after public comment, and I didn't have my hand up, so I'm trying to respect our rules. But I also don't mind waiting till after public.
Okay. All right. Any other requests to speak before public comment? Councilmember Alcala.
No, I just lowered it, Mayor. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble here.
Okay. All right, I'll put it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak?
Anybody in attendance this evening would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand at this time. I see no hands raised.
Okay, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to council. Who wants to go first between Councilmember Alcala and Councilmember Early?
Go ahead,
I have my hand up, Madam.
Go ahead, Councilmember Early.
Okay, so the only thing that I was going to say, and it's just a personal preference, so this is a hard one. I appreciate Concept C, how it incorporates some of the sort of signage that we're used to seeing, the big W that sticks out, which is great. But I also really love the concept. I'm pointing this if you could see my finger, but I also love the almost kind of like crosswalk or trail in concept B. And so I was just wondering if you could incorporate both concept B and C together, and that taking the bigger picture, which I guess would be instead of the bikes in concept C, you would take the people walking along the trail and the bike rider and put that on there instead of the 3 bikes, and then keep the big W in the West Sacramento part of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, so I believe you're asking for the front of the sign, keep it with this big W, but use the back with concept B.
Yes, Stephanie, you said that with a lot less words. Thank you.
Mayor Guerrero, Mayor Pro Tem Orozco also has her hand up. I'm not sure if you can see that or not.
No, I can't. I'm missing where she is. I see. Yes, I can see her hand up now. Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Alcala and then Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Orozco next.
Thank you. You know, I really like that W also. I was going to ask if that's sort of like freestanding, but I did like concept B because concept C, I had actually trouble trying to figure out until I looked really close and saw that they were bikes. When I looked at it, I thought they were maybe like tables or something. And then I saw that they look like spectacles. It's not really clear. I realized that's the favored concept. We got 45.7%. But I also like concept B. I think it's very easy to distinguish, you know, a bike rider as opposed to the bikes over here. From a distance, it would be hard to distinguish what they really are. But I do like that W, and I was going to ask if that was freestanding.
Yeah, so at the top it is freestanding above the.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, and I would like to see that incorporated. As Councilwoman Early said, I thought that's one of the things that struck me with concept C, but I do prefer concept B.
All right.
Also, I was going to ask you about the signs. I see the different sizes of signs for the different sign type menu. No, not that one. Hold on. Going through all these different. Here we go. On the sign type menu, directional signs small, and trail identifier. Is there a reason that there's so many different sizes? Because for me, bigger is better. Do you have a reason for that?
So it depends on like where I believe we end up putting these signs. So like the larger ones will be the ones that will be placed along where we have identified the dots on the maps that I've shared. The trail identifiers are actually ideally to be placed in between those locations, just to make sure that people know that they're on the right track. But between the two larger signs, I think that that's just more on preference of the city.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Orozco.
Thank you, Member. I appreciate this. But first of all, let me just commend Steve for the many years we have been working on this. I know that this is not something new. It has been a vision for a very long time, and I'm excited about the opportunity to even give feedback on the options that we've received. First off, I agree with my colleagues. I think that B was a standout, clearly for me. I love the active concept. It's very fresh, very sporty, very inspiring and visionary. For me, my second, I guess, in order would have been concept A. I mean, I still don't love it like even half as much as I liked B. But I mean, if we have this vision to connect every community in the in West Sacramento and the Sac region. And I read the recent SACOG report about connecting our region by 2050 and talking about our Sacramento Regional Trail Network and bringing more access to walking and biking. And I think that concept B really does encourage that vision. It looks like it's healthy, active transportation in a sign by itself, and it incorporates walking, biking, I mean, to some extent rolling, I suppose, if you can envision that. And it's, just pretty much good looking from a brand standpoint. The color palettes speak to me. It seems like, it really does communicate this direction to encourage more recreational and, participation in these types of modes of transportation. So from a branding perspective, that would be and with the incorporated W even better. With respect to the location, I think Ruby nailed it. I think we've done a really good job at knowing our city well enough to say where it is these things should be. From someone who commutes from sometimes, not as much as I'd love to, only because we're still working on our city becoming more walkable and bikeable, but I've done it. I've ridden my bike to my office, and to the extent that I'll be able to run through the ramp to get to the courthouse, more seamless sessions, and the signs would probably encourage a lot more riders to get down on the road.
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Orozco, we can't hear you anymore. You're completely gone.
I believe she might have dropped off.
I think she dropped.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And I really, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I don't know where I left off, but the point being is I'm just really excited to bring this to our city, opportunity to do so, because I really do think that it's going to encourage that much more walkability and bikeability within the city and our trails. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Orozco. And so I just want to give a little bit of feedback. First of all, thank you so much, and to to our designer who prepared these renderings, Hunt Design. Thank you so much for doing that. I think that I do like the W. I think that is really nice touch. It does match a lot of some of the other artwork around the city as described in the background document. I think it's important to have, the banners also for the Washington District, the Riverwalk Park, just to help people, know where they are. Outsiders, as has been described, that we would like to make this a destination for those that are coming from the outside coming in via the, bike or pedestrian pathway, so that, they can get a sense as to where they're at. And when it's referenced, they'll know that this is where they're at. And I do like, though, the concept B. I think it's a little more clear both to cover the pedestrian and the bicycle. For me, the one biker versus the bicycles itself, either one. I think just maybe two bicycles, not three, so you can have the walker up on top, separated. That might work for each to have their own, spacing. And I like that it's, the concept C, that it's white when you read the destination A, B, and C, and D instead of the dark color. So I do like the lighter color, and I think it's going to be hopefully a little more visible many times during the day. And in concept B, though, I do see there is a peach color and a green color. Do we need to give you some feedback on the coloring of that, or do you have enough information from us?
If you would like, but I believe I have enough information.
Okay. Okay, I think for me, the gold and blue is just keeping it, simple in the colors. Is people are going to be driving by, or maybe if they're walking by, I think it'll last really nice if it's simple and capture people's eye that way. And other than that, I am real excited as well. This is really nice to be able to have some wayfinding, just to be able to get people around in the city so that they can, get out and enjoy our trails that we are going to continue to expand and grow throughout the city. So thank you so much. Ms. Chan, I think that you've done a very good job in preparing this, and this must be exciting work for you. Real happy to have this. And I was wondering, we were to provide feedback, is there anything else you need from us at this point?
Madam Mayor, I did want to make a quick comment. I'm sorry, my hand was up.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just real fast, I agree with a lot of the comments of my colleagues. Stephanie, first of all, thank you for leading this. It is super exciting to kind of see this come to life and see the different concepts. I don't have quite the design eye, but that everybody else may have. So I'm trusting the public and the feedback, but I am drawn to B as well. The one thing I would kind of further is the sign should brand everything under the West Sacramento W or whatever. I think that should be consistent in the signage throughout, whether it's no matter what trail or neighborhood it's going through, showing it Sycamore Trail, it's West Sac, is what I see on concept D is a really good use of space, remind sort of everybody our collection of neighborhoods. So I think it's really in trails, I should say. So I think it's really a good thing. But anyway, just really super excited about this. This is really cool stuff. So thank you.
And I do have thank you so much, Councilmember Ledesma. I do have a question. I don't know if you heard enough feedback. There's on the top of concept B, it says path, and then on the top of concept C, it says West Sacramento. Do you have enough clarity on which one we prefer?
I am under the impression you want to keep West Sacramento, but I will. If I am wrong, no.
And we want to make sure you understand what component of concept B you'd like for us.
Yes, it sounds like you like the more active or different modes of transportation, just not focusing on the bikes itself. I just to clarify and provide some additional information for you, we did on the survey provide a opportunity for just any feedback, and all the concepts, like there were multiple responses saying that all the concepts look good, like we are any of these concepts look great, but like, so if you are concerned about the fact that you're not really going with the public like number one choice, like they're like, oh, it's kind of really hard to choose because these are good concepts overall. So I would say concept B and C are kind of probably neck and neck, and it sounds like you want to take features of both that might satisfy some of the feedback we heard, and the council's feedback does align with some of the feedback we heard from the survey as well, where they did like the fact that concept B focused on different modes of transportation. So I think that my impression or my understanding of council's feedback right now is we want to keep the W, we want to keep West Sacramento on the sign somewhere. We like the fact that it's showing either the trail or the district that you're in. And we want to have the back of the sign at least show multiple modes of transportation. Is there anything else I'm missing?
Nope, I don't think so. I think everybody's good.
Okay, great. So with that, I'll share that feedback with our designer.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Look forward to. And are you going to come back to us for anything else?
I don't think so at this point. I think that we can move forward with. I'll probably share it with council offline, and then we can move forward with the implementation.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ms. Chan. Appreciate it. All right. And with that, let's see. We are down to, let's see what we have next here on the agenda. We have council, the administrative function part 2. We have item number 20, council communication. And let's see, everybody's hands are up. We'll start with Councilmember Early.
I can make mine pretty fast. For the Yellow Habitat Conservancy board meeting that I attended, we voted on and approved our budget, which was really good. And then the Yolo County Housing meeting, we are currently in search of, I think, an executive director. And so right now we have an interim. We will be having interviews in the coming weeks. And so looking forward to filling that position.
All right, Councilmember Early, thank you. Councilmember Alcala.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't have my hand up, but
and you have plenty to report. Just kidding.
I will next meeting. We've
okay.
It's
you're breaking up.
I was going to say just approving minutes from previous meetings. It's been a rather sedate time this May has for some of the committees I've been on, but I'll have a report for June. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Councilmember Ledesma.
We have a couple just to catch everybody up on. May 9th, it's been a while since we reported. All of us had a meeting, got our first look at the budget, which honestly, we have a meeting on Monday, and I will not be present at that, Madam Mayor. I've let the executive director know that you might hit the pinch hit that day. But I will look at the budget that came out today, and I'll give you any comments from that budget. But so again, that was the 9th meeting on that, and then on the 23rd was the River City Regional Stadium Financing Authority meeting. The mayor and I attended that with our friends from Sac County and Yolo County, but we basically reviewed the treasurer's report for the calendar year and then approved the administrative expense budgets for 22-23. And then earlier today was a meeting of the Sacramento Yolo Port Commission. Had one item there, which was adoption of Resolution P22-2, approving the port budget for the fiscal year 2022 and 2023. I'm hard time saying that, but because we are in that time season. But the budget for the port looks very good. A lot of ports in good shape. Lots of good movement there. A lot further along than we've been in a long time with the port. But kind of getting ready for any kind of potential changes because of just macroeconomic changes that are occurring. So we're kind of being aware of all those things. But anyway, it was good meeting today passing that budget. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, on past couple of SACOG board meetings, following actions were taken. We approved funding for the Yolo County Transit's Youth Ride Free program for 0 to 18-year-olds, which was set to expire June 30th, 2022. So this funding would allow the program to for 2 additional years. Yolo County will offer fare-free days for all riders on at least 32 days, including promotional tri-transit days, fare the air days, and select holidays. Yolo County Transit will also offer subsidized fares tickets to nonprofits that serve low-income clients. They also approved the SACOG latest revenue forecast for the 2022-2023 regional funding round and draft guidelines for the revolving local match program. Approved final regional trail network and prioritization framework with the understanding that staff will present any revisions of this. The prioritization framework will be used to develop an action plan for priority projects for the board's consideration in June. I believe that Councilmember Ledesma will be, he may be seeing that tomorrow. And then at our last SACOG board meeting, we had a robust discussion. I don't know if you are a SACB a subscriber, but you'll see in there part of that discussion, which is a proposed citizens transportation tax initiative in Sacramento County. I will say, I think a little different than what I read in the SACOG, the SACB article, that there was consensus among the board members for SACOG to work out the differences. I think there's like, SACOG cannot take a position as an organization, but they can provide technical assistance when it comes to a ballot initiative as it relates to what the goals are regionally and provide feedback. And so I think SACOG board was able to just encourage continued work, and we're receiving regular updates. I requested that because the timing is a very short window for that to come back to the SACOG board, and I think Councilmember Ledesma, you may hear about that tomorrow. You may also have a part of the discussion, so that's why I wanted you to take a look at the Sacramento Bee article. If you need a copy, I can send it over to you, so you can have that article for some background, or even take a look at the meeting, the SACOG board meeting, just to hear a little bit of that. It was a lengthy discussion. Also, the SACOG Regional Bike Share Policy Steering Committee met and supported the recommendation by the Bike Share Project Management Team for the SACOG Board of Directors to approve an amendment to the Bike Share Program agreement with Lime. And the amendment, so this is some good news, so I just wanted to bring this to your attention, is a program agreement that outlines terms for a one-year bike share and scooter share shared micromobility pilot project in Davis. And the reason why that's good news is because I do hear from a lot of people that there are some Davis College students out here in West Sacramento, and they have it's sometimes challenging for them to get transportation over to Davis. And with this opportunity, they can benefit from either Yolo County Transit or VIA, and then get their bicycle from there to Davis, and just kind of use these ways of connecting and getting to Davis. So did encourage them to work with our transportation folks to try to do some outreach and expand that opportunity with our West Sacramento residents who do commute to Davis. The next is the SACOG Race Equity and Inclusion Work Group. We met last week, and we had received quite a bit of information. It was all detailed information from listening sessions and just interviews done among a lot of people throughout the region, primarily staff. And they provided some insight on what we can do to establish equity, to encourage and promote, connecting with members of the community who have been underserved, underrepresented, and they were seeking from us guidance on what to do with this information. So I think what we're looking at is maybe having some tours, because the information, you can read about it, but I think it's really good to go out and tour and meet with the people and gather more information directly from the constituencies who are impacted by, the lack of racial equity throughout the number of years in all of our communities. So providing that guidance this is to prioritize racial equity through public engagement for SACOG's blueprint plan, which we're going to take some time. The chair, Jennings, is very good at making sure that everybody is participating, and we do this carefully, that it doesn't get done quickly without everybody's input and consideration. So with that, next we have 3 vacancies now. I hear that we still have our 1 Board of Appeals, and we have 2 in Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation Commission. I do know of a new applicant, which is John Archuleta, and he just wanted to check in with him to see where he might be on this. I think a lot of you know who he is, but he might be an applicant that we can consider, and just putting that out there for now. And council calendar, do we have any updates?
Good evening. Just a reminder that next Friday is the Riverfront Street Extension groundbreaking. That's at 10 o'clock, and it's over on 5th Street. I'm sorry, it's at Mill and Riverfront Street, so over in the Birch District. That's it. Thank you.
City manager report.
Thank you. 2 quick notes tonight. One just to follow up on an item that was in front of you last meeting at the farmers market. We said it would start in June. I have a more precise date now, so it is going to be June 11th. You'll surely be seeing a lot more information about it in terms of promotions. And I know we had the mayor did an interview very recently that's going to feature that and other items, it sounds like. So look for that, I think, on ABC. And then the second note is that I know I've said this before to council members, really it's for the public, given that it's not midnight and hopefully people are still watching. Our July 20th meeting will be our first in-person meeting. So I know I've foreshadowed that before and we had to make some adjustments as we've gone along, but we are locked in now. That's going to be the first in-person meeting. Our commissions are also going to be transitioning back to in-person meetings starting that date. So we'll reiterate that both at the beginning of the meeting on the 15th. And again, I'll mention it in my manager's report next meeting, and we'll make sure that we put enough notice so that people understand they have to actually come to City Hall starting on July 20th. So next meeting though on June 15th will be our last Zoom meeting, same format as tonight. So that's all I have.
Picture day, July 20th.
That's right. We'll do council photos as is customary. We'll take a group photo of the council, and you'll be able to update your other photos if you like. And for the newer council members, will be taking your first photos and having your first meeting in the council chambers. It'll be fun.
Oh. I was going to say, the old 15-year-old photo. Do we have to?
Well, you can do whatever you want. It just goes in a nice frame in the council
Member
chamber.
outlet, you look good.
Oh, no, you're so sweet.
Yeah, Paul Hosley on our staff will be reaching out, so we can accommodate whatever council would like to do. But you have the option, and we will take the group photo of the council as well.
Thank you, Chris. I wanted to ask you something, Aaron. At my last one of the commission meetings that I had, we were talking about having not just in person, but also having a hybrid Zoom availability. And I know they told me that that's what they're planning on doing. They said they have the capacity for it. And I believe someone, one of the city council members, I want to say it was Woodland, said they have been doing that. And I'm hoping that we can do that to accommodate people that may have disabilities that want to continue to be engaged, but maybe limited.
It varies among cities, and for the commissions, you may be referring to RD 900 and some of the outside commissions, West Safeca. Those, because they're their own governing bodies, they can continue to do remote or hybrid meetings. Our plan for right now is that we're going to go back to our former format. Remote participation, there's written comments available, but in the past we had had our council format be in person, where people would come to the council chambers to participate and also participate in writing. So that's our plan right now. We don't have the setup right at the moment to move to another option, but that's something that the state law is kind of evolving on that as well. But our plan right now is to come back to our old model of how we used to do meetings.
Okay, thank you. But we will have the hearing caption in place.
That we are working on, because right now it's done through Zoom, which is one of the benefits of using Zoom. But when we go back to the former format, that's something that we're looking at adapting. So we would like to have the stream have the option for closed captioning. I know other language translation has been asked about before. So as part of our return to in-person meetings, we're looking at those issues also. I just don't know the latest on between the clerk's office and IT what is available, but we are looking into all of those options.
Yeah, I've been talking with a few of the senior groups, like with Charlotte Dorsey and folks like that. And I think the closed caption is going to be very important.
Yeah, we will figure out a way to do it.
All right.
There's options out there. We've just been operating under the Zoom format, and it actually became fairly easy to do it. But there are other options on the market available for live streaming, so we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you. Just to add, for the city manager, did you want to provide an update on the levy funding? Did we talk about that in the last meeting yet? I can't remember when that happened.
We did not, and yeah, it's good news. I think it may have been in the council's weekly update, but we were recently awarded, I'll probably get the number wrong, but it was a significant number of additional funding, I think in the range of $8 million for the federal project. So that's in addition to some 18, 19 million that we were previously awarded. So that will allow us to really proceed to construction on the next portion of the levee improvements. So definitely good news on that front.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next is our city attorney report.
I have nothing to report this evening.
All right, thank you. We don't have any future agenda items. I would like to adjourn in the memory of Helena Himhold, who recently passed away. Helena, I don't know if you participated in the warming center or visited, the Christmas basket deliveries that used to happen. She developed the West Sacramento Christmas Basket Project, and also the founder of many charitable programs here throughout, West Sacramento. I think there was another organization she established. It was like a YOLO East charitable organization to help those that were homeless. So I think she established the compassion and the support, and was one of the founders of Mercy Coalition. And her funeral was just not a funeral, but it was, I think, a celebration of life with her family present, and hundreds of members of the community were present. So I just want to add one more thing. In her last hours in her when she was passing on, she said to she called up somebody at the church for the Downtown Streets team, can you please open the doors and make sure the doors remain open? And that's just who she was all the way till the end. Just somebody who constantly thought about others. And a lot of people just brought testimony on how they recovered from their substance abuse and sought treatment from illness. And so she was just at a heart of gold. And I remember her little truck that she would carry around, carrying food and other items to donate to those that are in need. So just want to keep her in our memory and in our prayers. She's our saint now, watching over West Sacramento. So with that, I'd like to adjourn in her memory.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I pass along all our condolences and prayers to her family. She was my first introduction to community nonprofit work in this community. So thank you, Helena, for all you've done. And in that, I'll make a motion to adjourn in her memory.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Early. Aye. Councilmember Akala.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Orozco. I think she dropped off. Mayor Guerrero.
Aye. All right, good night, everybody.
Aye.
Aye.